Hey there, fans. Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Sit and Spin, where if you didn't figure out from the title already, tonight we're going to be talking about some recent releases from our rockin' neighbors to the north up in Canada. First up, no, those aren't Gregorian chants you're hearing in the background. It's the opening strains from the new album from the band Big Wreck. The album's called Albatross. This is the band's reunion album. It's their first since 2001. The members of the band first met on the campus of Berklee College of Music, so that should tell you a little bit about the musicality of these cats and that they've got their act together. They gigged around Boston for a few months, releasing their debut album In Loving Memory Of on Atlantic Records in 1997. That record featured the songs The Oath and That Song, which you may remember from getting a fair amount of airplay right here in Portland's own WCYY. They released a further record in 2001, which didn't get quite the same promotional push, so it didn't do as well, and they ended up calling it a day and going their separate ways. 2004, singer and multi-instrumentalist Ian Thornley put his own band together called Thornley, releasing a record that came out down here in the States too, and it did okay, got a little bit of airplay down here. But their second album was only released up in Canada around about 2008-2009, and I never got a chance to hear that one. Sadly, I'm going to have to track down a copy of it now. Around 2010, Ian Thornley got back together with former Big Wreck guitarist Brian Doherty, and they went out on tour through Canada playing both the music of Big Wreck and Thornley together. And those shows went so well, they decided, you know, man, let's get Big Wreck back together again and put a new record out. And so they did, and they put this little piece of joy out right here. I got to give a little credit to my friend Gino Ames, who's been singing this record's praises for some time. The record actually came out in Canada last year, but just got its stateside release here last month. I recently went down to visit Gino in St. Augustine, Florida, and as he was driving me around the city, he had this record on in the background. And at one point, about 3 songs in, I had to say, Gino, who is this? This is fantastic. And he said, this is the Big Wreck record I've been telling you about, you knucklehead. So as soon as I got home, I went out and picked myself up a copy of the record, and I have been listening to this puppy pretty much nonstop ever since. And the more I hear it, the more I'm absolutely loving it. One thing I can say about Big Wreck is that singer Ian Thornley has got a voice that's very similar to Chris Cornell. And in a way, this record is kind of like the solo album I always hoped Chris Cornell would make after the first one, because that was actually pretty good. But the last two, ew. And in a way, it's actually better than Soundgarden's recent reunion album. That's how much I like this. But it's also kind of unfair to really compare them to Soundgarden, because Big Wreck is more than that. They're not afraid to throw the random dulcimer or banjo or mandolin or some exotic wood-stringed instrument in there, which is pretty cool, because you would never really hear those kind of things on a Soundgarden album. So Big Wreck's pretty much their own band. They're not afraid to wear their influences on their sleeve either. The song You Caught My Eye, very much reminiscent of AC/DC. In fact, you take out some of the modern production trappings of it, and it's like a new, updated version of Ride On. Great blues-inspired solo, very much like Angus Young. The song All Is Fair also owes a lot to Jimmy Page, and the riffage in that thing, you'd almost swear was Page. It's that good, but that aside, they also make pretty much what is their own music, and it's great. It's awesome. And Gino, you were right. This album's great. Should have got it sooner. It's co-produced by Nick Raskulic, who has worked with people like Foo Fighters, Superdrag, and Rush, and the list goes on and on so long that I could not possibly name all the bands. But if you remember Sound City that I was talking about a couple episodes back, Nick is featured in that movie because he got his start actually working in Sound City Studios. So do yourself a favor if you like good alternative rock, if you can kind of hear what's playing in the background, and if I can find some samples to put up, check this album out. You won't be disappointed. I wasn't disappointed either. Our next release is a posthumous release from the Jeff Healey Band. It's called House on Fire. Jeff unfortunately passed away back in 2008 of cancer. I feel a little bad about that because Jeff and I were the same age. I actually got the chance to meet him on a few occasions when I used to write for Bass Magazine back in the day. He was a great guy, a humanitarian, an accomplished musician for somebody who'd been blind since infancy. Guy taught himself how to play guitar in a very inventive way, and he was also an accomplished trumpeter, had his own jazz radio show and his own jazz club, and after the Healey Band kind of broke up, he split his time between doing jazz records and doing straight-up traditional blues rock records. This album is a collection of unreleased demos and rarities that the band recorded between 1992 and 1998. Includes material from the album Feel This that they were working on that never got put out, a couple of outtakes from the Cover to Cover album, which was all a series of covers that the band did, and a couple of other songs for a record that actually never ended up being made. Jeff sad to see him go. But it's great that they're still putting out new music for him. Sorry, I got a little bit choked up there because I think about Jeff and I think, man, we were the same age, and it's sad that he's gone. And he was such a cool cat. The first time I actually met him, when I first interviewed him for Face back in 1990. It's a very funny story. This is the kind of humor the guy had. When I first met him, he said something to me when he introduced himself, but I didn't quite catch it. And I had to ask him, I said, sorry, what was that again? And he said, are you the guy that everybody in the room keeps saying looks like he could be my brother? And I was like kind of taken aback, and I said, well, I guess thanks. He said, well, I'm sorry, man, you must be one ugly bastard. Either that or you're a handsome devil, and let's go for the latter. And that was the kind of humor Jeff had. That was the kind of cat he was. He was really, really cool. I really like Jeff's music a lot. The blues rock style was really cool. So I'm always happy when something from him that I didn't know existed turns up, and especially this. For a series of outtakes and demos, this is dynamite stuff, and it's the kind of record that makes you say, how was this left in the can? The songs on here are great. A couple of covers from the Covers to Cover album that didn't make it. There's a version of Bob Seger's We Got Tonight, which is really good. It definitely fits Jeff's vocal style quite well. And the track that's even better is a cover of Springsteen's Adam Raised the Cane, which is totally suited for Jeff, and this version absolutely smokes. Some of the other music that didn't get put out on here, there's a new tune called Joined at the Heart. It was recorded around 98. It's really good, just good rock. There's another tune called Days of the Night. It's very reminiscent of the riff from Saturday Night Special from Leonard Skinner. And there's also a great ballad on this called Too Late Now that's just like could have been, should have been a hit. If you're a fan of Jeff Healey at all, you should go out and pick this record up. You won't be disappointed at all. If you don't remember Jeff, you might remember him. He's the guitar player in this movie, Roadhouse. And speaking of movies, rock and roll movies in particular, if you didn't see my question earlier in the week, next week I'm doing a special on rock and roll movies. There's going to be a reason for that. You'll find out why. But if you haven't voted on your favorite rock and roll movies, please just go to the questions I've already asked and list your favorite rock and roll movies. Even if somebody else has already named the movie, put down your choices, because I got a lot of ties and I need to make a definitive top 10. So please do that if you get a chance. I appreciate your input. And if there's anything you think I should be checking out, drop me a line on the message, leave me a note about it. I'm always up for hearing new music and new stuff. If you have any comments or anything you want to share, please do that as well, because I want you to be a part of this too. And hopefully we'll catch you next week for the next episode of Sit and Spin. Thanks for checking us out.